Good. Are we on? Yes. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I am back. Yes, I'm back from my trip. I've just got back literally today, hours ago, from my trip to northern France, where I was looking at these migrant camps. I was I traveled around. We traveled around as much as we can to get as much information as we can because I wanted to see these migrant camps for myself. And look, guys, I'm not going to lie to you. This does not end well. Like, the problem is a lot bigger than I even like. When you see these images on TV, you see these, you see people filming, and there's the migrant camps. It's difficult to get it's difficult to get a sense of how big this problem actually is. So what I'm going to do in this live stream, guys, I'm going to talk about what I found over there, and then I'm going to give my solution. I do think we're already too far gone. I think the saturation point into the United Kingdom has gone too high now. So let me just get into this, guys. I do have some footage. And what I'm going to do with that footage, I'm going to collate it all. I'm going to put it together in a YouTube video, and I'll just post the video. The footage is not the best. The footage is not the best, guys. It's very difficult to film at these places when you're on your own. Like, not a chance you can get out of the car. It's just ridiculous. No, you don't get out of the car. No, you're not getting out of the car, and you want to keep your car moving. So if you're trying to drive and film at the same time, it's very difficult, and it's just wild, guys. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me this evening. Like I said, I've just returned from northern France, where I witnessed firsthand the migrant camps outside Dunkirk and Calais. Let me tell you, guys, the situation is far worse than I even imagined. Now, one aspect I didn't even fully consider. And look, guys, before I say this, I'm Team GB, I'm Team UK, I live in the United Kingdom. My main concern is with the United Kingdom and, the people living in this country. You can't not see, the impact on the local French residents. In some cases, these people were living like maybe 100 meters from these massive migrant camps. So can you imagine now? Yes, it's bad living next to a hotel, and nobody's taking anything away from that. The crime, the problems that happen. But can you imagine if you are living 100 meters away from a migrant camp, and there's no walls, there's no nice warm beds for these people, and they're just roaming freely on the countryside. They're just walking wherever they want, and it's crazy. Unless you've seen it firsthand, it's very difficult to try and put that into context. But there's no physical barriers, basically. It must be utterly terrifying. Utterly terrifying for those French families and communities living like that, because you don't know when you're going to open the door and somebody's going to be sat in your living room. Like, when the weather closes down, what's stopping these people from, deciding they want to go and get a bed in someone's house? And we all know what's happening. So before I share my proposed solution, allow me to paint a picture of what I encountered. We started by, I'll put all the maps and everything or on a YouTube video, but we started by driving off the main road into one of these camps. It was a big mistake, guys. It was a big mistake. As soon as we entered as soon as we drove into the camp, obviously, they saw British plates on my car, and there were NGO workers. They started walking towards us. Migrants started just to come from everywhere. There was even like police in an unmarked car across the road. They got out as well, and they started coming towards us. It made filming absolutely impossible. Absolutely impossible. There's not a chance in hell you're going to start filming there when the police and the NGOs. It's just carnage, guys. It's not going to happen. So we drove down the road. There was a nearby cafe. And what we decided to do is, my friend, basically, he didn't want to go back down there. He said, look, I'm not going back down there. He said, you can leave me at this cafe. You can drive on your own. I said, right, okay, I'll go on my own. So what I did then is where the main entrance was to the migrant camp, I had a look on the Google Maps, and there was another back road leading into it. Now, I went through the rural area, and it maybe about I don't know, 4 or 5 mile detour right into like the rural back roads of France. I then came back. I think it was from the west. I came back back into the camp again from the west. That's what I've got footage of. But as I was driving up through there, there's just migrants wandering the countryside all over, guys. And it's just wild because these people are, they're just covered in blankets, and it's grim, guys. It really is grim. It's absolutely grim. So, like I said, guys, the footage you guys see, it's not perfect. I was driving solo, juggling my phone and trying to capture what I could. When I re-entered the camp, I was shocked by the sheer numbers. The numbers were overwhelming. I would estimate to be a minimum 1,000 people in this one camp. Now, I had to navigate through dense crowds. I knew I couldn't stop, or it would be game over, guys. It would be a bad situation. If I'd have stopped in my car as I was driving through these, like, you can imagine, you drive into like 1,000 migrants, and like all just walking around. I think over to my left, I don't think I get this on camera, but there was a huge queue of maybe a couple of hundred people. And I think that was like a feeding station, or they were giving food out. So I think it was like feeding time or dinner time or whatever. And as I was driving through, I had to weave through like lots of people. And I've been in these situations before. I've seen cars get mobbed. You guys have seen cars get attacked yourselves, right? Kind of didn't want that to happen to me. So I didn't want these people to know I was filming. So I put my phone down, and I drove through the crux of it, and I got my phone back up, and we got to the other end. So once I got through the main group, I started filming again. And guys, honestly, it was crazy. All these people, I'm assuming, were trying to reach the United Kingdom, and the conditions are so dire. Like the conditions that they were in, a prison in the United Kingdom would be an upgrade. That's what I'm saying, guys. All right. The prison in the UK would be an upgrade. Think about it. Literally, guys, think about it. All right. In these migrant camps, full of dudes. All right. They're full of dudes. They get, I don't know how many meals a day they get. It rains. It's cold. They don't have access to running water. Guess what? If you come to the United Kingdom, and you get worst case scenario, I guess, second worst case scenario, you get put in prison because for whatever reason you've committed a crime. So the very worst thing that can happen to people that come to the United Kingdom and from these migrant camps is a better situation where they're at now. It makes no sense, guys, for these people to want to stay in France. So if they come to the United Kingdom and got put in prison, they would get medical care. They would get 3 meals a day. They would get a dry room. They would get blankets and heating. That's better than they've got right now. So these people will move hand and foot to get over to the United Kingdom. So it's not just the large camps that are the issue. It's not just the large camp. I also went back at night time. What I wanted to do is that camp. I decided to go back at night time and see what I could find at night time. I'll put the footage on. Again, it's not the best footage. Trying to film it at night time when on a phone, it's not the best. I will put that footage on later on in a video. But, it's not just these big camps that are the problem. Because, like, when you're driving around in, like, the rural parts of France, like, just in random hedgerows, you might see, like, 10 or 15 tents or, like, 2 or 3 tents. These little, tented areas are just popping up everywhere, all over rural France. All over the place, guys. It's absolutely insane. And they're all bolstered by these NGO workers. My friend, actually, he saw these. He was more scared of the NGO workers because you guys can imagine what a liberal French NGO worker looks like. You guys want to, it's up to you guys want to speculate on that. And I do feel these NGO workers are really limiting the police. I do. We spoke to some people. It was difficult to find people who spoke English, but those of we did speak to spoke English. They weren't all, they didn't all want to talk to us, and none of them wanted to. Guys, listen, I don't know if you've ever been out trying to get somebody to talk to you on film. It's virtually impossible. It's more or less impossible. We had limited time there. We had limited time in Cali. We had limited time in Dunkirk. So I wanted to get out there, and I wanted to do, I didn't want to spend all day trying to find somebody to speak on camera. I wanted to get out there, and I wanted to see things for myself. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I didn't spot any women or children. Not one woman or one child. Again, I may be wrong. They may be there. I may just not seeing them. The children may have looked like adults, or maybe the women look like men. And I'm not being disrespectful there. I'm saying I didn't see anyone that I perceived as women or children. But listen, guys, we can all be women and we can all be children. We can all identify as women now, can't we? Now, these unknown individuals are literally roaming through the French countryside, housing estates, residential areas. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a national emergency now, not just for the United Kingdom, but also for France. This is one of the things I didn't really consider before I went out there, the impact on France. Be under no illusion, guys, the French people don't want these migrant camps there as much as we don't want these migrants in our country as well. They don't want them there. We don't want them. So, we're in this very peculiar situation right now where the French are blaming the British for, the French are saying, because of your benefits, your benefit system's too lucrative for these people. That's why they're coming to northern France, and that's why we can't get rid of them. And the British are saying, you guys need to stop these migrants coming over. We keep giving you money. What are you doing with all this money? So, it's a wild situation. It really is a wild situation. And, plain and simple, guys, I do believe it's a national emergency for both countries. Now, there is no quick fix, guys. There is no quick fix to this. Even if we manage to stop all the boats tomorrow, let's just say we stop them all tomorrow. Keir Starmer puts the Navy like he should have done years ago. Puts the Navy on the border and says, right, we're literally stopping the boats. Like, we're not having this. We're not being invaded by rubber dinghies. The UK is already overwhelmed. We are already overwhelmed. In my view, the only way to fight this problem, is to fight fire with fire. I would say my solution to this would be to open or to start our own NGO, call it like Christians for France or something. And the purpose of that NGO would be dedicated to providing security and monitoring for the French people. At the same time, we focus on environmental cleanup, sweeping the beaches daily to dispose of, crisp packets, beer bottles, rubber dinghies, motors. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? So I think that again, there's no quick fix, guys. There's no quick solution. I know there's the guys out there from, I think it's raise the flag? Raise the flag. There's guys out there and they're doing their own thing, and I've got nothing against that. I think it's good. They're a limited number of people and they can get arrested. They can get absolutely arrested. If you set up an NGO, you have to go through a whole legal framework then. And then those people won't get arrested. Somebody would go and talk to the NGO, and then that NGO would give them legal jargon. Then it would go to the courts, and then it'd be an absolute, it'd take forever. So we can fight their NGOs with our NGOs. Guys, look, I've been in this game long enough. I know how it works. We could probably even get some funding, like French funding or something, because these funding channels are open. And it's not a quick fix. It's absolutely not a quick fix, guys. There is no quick fix to this. There's absolutely no quick fix. If the British government stopped, so if the government now said, right, if you come over to the United Kingdom, we're giving you no better. You're not getting a hotel. You're not getting three meals a day. You think the crime rate's bad now? You guys think look, and as critical as everybody is of the government, and I am as well, as critical as everyone is of the government for giving migrants 3 meals a day and a hot hotel, you know, nice warm blankets, you know, really looking after our migrants. Do you know what would happen if they didn't do that? These guys would be roaming the countryside. They'd be roaming the countryside, knocking on your doors, trying to make entry into houses, and I know that's already happening. That, you know, I've seen this now with my own eyes, and guys, there's no easy solutions. There's absolutely no easy solutions. So just again, guys, my solution to this would be, you know, to form another NGO, operate in northern France, Brits for France, Christians for France. It doesn't matter what it's called. And that would be dedicated to providing security and monitoring of the migrant camps for the French people that are affected, and also the environmental cleanup of the French beaches. And by environmental cleanup, I mean, you know, we'll be sweeping those beaches every morning, you know, looking for, you know, I don't know, crisp packets, empty beer bottles, rubber dinghies, outboard motors, jerry cans, all that sort of stuff. We would be disposing of that as per our, as per our environmental, our environmental operating procedures. You know, and we could tap into these NGO existing funding channels, supplemented by public donations to make this happen. Now, I envisage setting up this would be like a training camp place where willing Brits, volunteers, come out to help on the ground, would come out to help on the ground, daily online reports, live footage from beach sweeps. We could have drones, our own drones in real time. We could be live streaming this to our website. Drones, our own stuff, going up and down the coast, monitoring. And I'm confident once that would be up and running, there'd be no more boats. Getting it there is easier said than done. Now, the reason we would do this is so that everybody could understand where that money is going, because, you know, people donate to stuff and you don't see anything back. And I've been on those things. And I totally understand where that's going. Now, based on my estimates, I would say we would need around £1 million a year. That would cover travel costs for the guys from the United Kingdom coming out. That would cover food, accommodation, drones for surveillance, media productions, legal support, training equipment. You know, I think we could do this for £1 million a year, which is not much. It's not much, guys, in the grand scheme of things. £1 million a year is not much. When you think that the United Kingdom, you know, the United Kingdom, guys, when everybody went down there, and I think there were like high-end estimates were that there were 3 million people. And again, you know, I've got nothing against it. I think it's fantastic. How much money do you think they spent going down there? Food, hotels, petrol, train tickets, you know. If 3 million people went down there and they achieved nothing, those 3 million people could all chip in 33 pence or whatever it is, and we'd stop the boats for 33 pence each. I think that's a better use of money. Essentially, guys, all right, these NGOs, I feel, are the pain. These NGOs that are operating in northern France, that's the link there that nobody's focusing on. These migrants, of course, like absolutely, like if you live in one of these third world countries, I was going to say what Trump was saying about Somalia, but I'm not going to. Like, if you live in like some Donald Trump the other day, and look, guys, Donald Trump saying some wild things at the moment about Somalia. I don't know if this is real. I don't know if this is real or AI, but I heard Donald Trump, and look, guys, I'm going to caveat this. I saw a video of Donald Trump saying, and again, I don't know if it was AI or not, saying, Somalia, they don't even have a country. It's just people walking around killing each other. And I was like, that's brutal. He's turning into 2016 Trump again. But yeah, essentially, we need to counter their NGOs with our own NGOs, and we can then use that framework and use their own bureaucracy against them. But ladies and gentlemen, be under no illusion, it would turn into the Wild West. It would turn into the Wild West, guys. But don't worry, guys, because I'm a cowboy and I've got some cowboy boots and I do want to live in America. So I think I would be well fixed on this. This isn't just about borders, guys. It's not. It really is about humanity and security and taking action where it's needed. That is the solution that I feel. I feel we need to I feel somebody, and I will be pushing this on other videos. I'm doing standalone videos on this, but I feel that's the only way, guys, to set up our own NGO. We go out there. I can set this up I can set this up with funding. And this is not a grift. This is not a grift. I don't want anything to do with the money. I don't want any money going into my bank account. I'll do it for free. We would set this up, and then once we've set it up, yeah, you guys know what I'm going to say, right? You guys know what I'm going to say, right? Once we've set that NGO up, we've got that legal framework to operate under. Because these guys going out there with all the best will in the world, they're going to get arrested. They are going to get arrested, guys, and it's not going to be a good day out for those people. Right, let me jump down and get some comments, guys. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Joshua Harrison is saying, shaky, they're not publishing the true numbers because the government doesn't want any more anger amongst the people. Hang on, what's shaky said? Shaky. Yeah, taxi driver, bring on the big inconvenience. I don't know what that means. Shaky. I don't know what that means. Silly Gallardi is saying boycott doesn't work. Trust me, it's a tool well executed against us for years. Right, hang on. What's going on here? Is there beef in the chat? Boycott holiday in France. Stop French cars from entering England. Yeah, guys, look, it's not okay. We can't really. The French people. Look, guys, those people in northern France, they don't want this as much as we don't want this, And I believe working with the locals in local France. I believe working with the locals in. What did I just say? Working with the locals in local France. I meant to say working with the locals in rural France. Sounds like a business adventure. One thing we've learned is these NGOs are profiting. So, look, I don't think so first of all the food, what I saw anyway, the food and the accommodation and the life support that's being provided to these migrants is being provided by NGOs. So, take that away, and I don't think they would go. Equally, there's a lot of complexities to this. There's a lot more complexities to this than I considered. Didn't Trump say he was going to investigate our migrant issue and sort it? We was talking in the car actually on the way back. I was talking to my friend and I said, can you imagine if Trump runs for, comes over to the United Kingdom and runs for prime minister or something? He's got ancestral roots in Scotland, right? I think Trump's mum? I think Trump's mum or his nan was Scottish. So, Donald Trump could definitely get over here. Rocky Man Gaming is saying, thing is, we have been overwhelmed to the point we have lost hope, unfortunately. Yeah, that word overwhelmed is true. We've already been overwhelmed. And, I did see this in another context. I don't know how I communicate this. Okay, right, guys, listen. I'm going to ask you guys a question, right? I'm gonna ask you guys a question. Oh, Montgomery here is saying the French people have been sold a lie for decades, just like the United Kingdom. So, guys, listen. I'm gonna ask you a question. All right. We all want these hotels closed, right? And we're all angry. Yeah, we're all angry that we are paying for these migrants, and I am as well. And everybody's angry that we're paying migrants. Well, we're not paying migrants. We're feeding migrants, giving them 3 meals. In fact, let me show you this video. I've got a little video actually. Oh. Right, I'm going to share this video with you guys. This is from, I don't know where the video is from, but let me share this video with you anyway. Because we're talking about paying for these migrant hotels, and something on this video really hit a nerve.
Legitimate target.
Can I make that bigger? Sorry, guys. When I was looking at this on my phone, it was bigger, but you guys can listen to what they're saying.
We are the new construction industry movement. And once again, we have been let down by the UK government, and Rachel Reeves has made the British taxpayer a legitimate target. Welcome to Great Britain, where the working man lives the country. He works, he pays, he sacrifices. Rachel Reeves promises growth, yet somehow the only thing growing is council tax and the price of cheese. Hotels filled with migrants.
So he's talking about the hotels filled with migrants here. Just listen to what he says.
All bills covered, 3 meals, warm rooms, paid by the man eating cold beans after a night shift.
Guys, honestly, when I heard that, that was like a hammer. That hit me like a hammer. Honestly, guys, that hit me like an absolute hammer. Listen to this again. So he's talking about these migrants.
Hotels filled with migrants, all bills covered, 3 meals, warm rooms, paid by the man eating cold beans after a night shift.
Guys, that is hard. That I don't know. Obviously, they've got balaclavas on. I don't know who these guys are, but that sentence, all paid for by the working man eating cold beans after a night shift. I absolutely get it, guys. I absolutely get it. I do. It's like that sentence really hit me.
Then we have Barry, who hasn't worked since twisting his ankle in 2015, but his benefits arrive like Christmas every month without fail. The working man carries a nation that forgets him. He funds a system that drains him, but they say it's fine, they need another hotel. And while we're holding out hotel rooms like 3 minutes at a dentist, there's another soldier forgotten in the fog, the British farmer, the man who feeds the country yet barely feeds himself after the supermarket price cuts and fuel hikes. He wakes up before dawn, works through storms that would evacuate cities, and sells his loaf labour for less than a London pint.
Come on, lads. Paddy's put your reaching off. Let's go.
I don't know these guys, but that little line there, you know, that little line there with like men are going out to work, paying their taxes, sitting in a cold fucking house, eating beans with the lights off because they can't afford the electricity. And we've got migrants in hotels doing their little dances and parties and doing this. Nom, 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 nom. That's the sentiment, right? That's the sentiment. Now, I don't want that. What would you prefer? You know, what would you guys prefer? You know, what would you guys prefer to this? Would you, and this is a question. I don't know what the answer is. First of all, we need to stop these people coming. We need to stop the boats. That's what we need. If these people didn't get those hotels and that nice place to go back to and feel safe and cozy, these people will be roaming the countryside with blankets, sat in your gardens, making, you know, coming into your house, squatting in empty, you know. So the whole situation, guys, it's like wildly out of control, because that's what they have in France, guys. Literally, that's what they have in France. Rural France. You just get people walking around the countryside, like with big blankets over them, just like walking around, and they've got nowhere to go. So the United Kingdom for these people It literally is the land of milk and honey. All paid for by the construction, all paid for by the working man who can't afford to put his lights on, eating cold beans at night, eating cold beans in the dark after a night shift. Guys, that was so hard hitting for me. I don't know whether I was feeling a little bit emotional. I don't know whether because I was feeling a bit emotional at the time when I was watching it, but it was powerful stuff, guys. It was powerful stuff. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we're talking about today. I've just got back from northern France where I went to these migrant camps. I've seen it myself with my own eyes now. The situation is a lot worse than I thought. If you guys are on and you've not done so already, can you make sure you hit the buttons down below, guys? The like, comment, the like and the subscribe, the ones down there, really helps me out when you guys do that. Right, let me jump up and get some comments. Templar Matt is saying, remember, British National Strike, I think, it's only for 1 week. Let's support each other and make a stand. Guys, look, it won't happen. It won't happen. It won't happen. People are too greedy. People want their money. People want to, people won't do it in the numbers, People won't do it in the numbers that are needed. And look, guys, I know I seem sometimes like I'm defeatist. I'm not defeatist. I'm realist. I'm telling you what the solution is to stop the boats. The solution, as far as I'm concerned, the solution to stop the boats is to start our own NGO in northern France. We operate by providing security and monitoring to these migrant camps for the local people of France. Good. We get in with local government. We get in with the local people of France. We get thumbs up from the French, right? And as a secondary thing, because we're all environmental, we sweep the beaches twice a day, making sure there's no dinghies, outboard motors, jerry cans of fuel left there. We make sure it's all nice and clean. And then we put all this on our website. Drone footage, and everything, we do this in a sustainable manner. The guys are out there at the moment. You guys have seen the videos and the footage of Raise the Colors, I think it is actually. They're going out. They're going to get arrested. They're going to get arrested, and they will. It will be a bad. It won't end well for them. It won't end well for them. They need that legal framework to operate under, guys. Okay, they need that. Yeah. X82 is saying night shift and beans. It's a dark time, guys. It's a dark time. Millie Mono is saying that's sad. It is, guys. It's sad. It's sad where we are right now in the United Kingdom. It's very sad. Boa Nikion is saying we the plebs have had enough. There's certainly an underlying movement in the United Kingdom right now. There's an uprising. There's a silent uprising in the United Kingdom. It's not made its voice appeared yet because they know that people who make their voices loud, whoosh, they get swizzled away, guys. They get. I heard you had an anti-government thought. What? Yeah, 12 years. What? 12 years for an anti-government thought? And when we get back to anti-government thoughts, guys, I've got some good news. Guys. I've got some good news from 5 hours ago. I'm jumping off topic, guys. I'm going on a side quest. We've got some good news, finally. Angela Rayner will make a return to the cabinet, says Keir Starmer. No, he can't sack me. No, I get loads of votes, me. I do what I want. I'll just sign out. I'm not educated, me. Look at these trousers. And I've heard Real Raven 1's content's gone right down since I've left government because he can't impersonate me anymore. But look at these trousers. They're proper right good. Keir Starmer has said the hugely talented... Fucking hell. The hugely talented... Sorry. Keir Starmer has said the hugely talented Angela Rayner will make a return to the cabinet following her resignation over a tax scandal. So, literally, guys, one rule for me, none for thee. So you guys can remember, right? When I've been talking to you guys about a tyrannical government, yeah, you guys. Sean's gonna. I'm talking about a tyrannical government. When I started talking about a tyrannical government, I gave the example. You know, I used to give the wild example that if you had a child, if the government brought in a law and the gavel went down on that law, and the law was that everybody's firstborn child had to be given to the government, you never see that child again, right? I know that's wild. You know, there would be no way that we can oppose that legally. We just have to do it, and then we have to vote. That's literally how our system's set up. Now, since I started giving that analogy, we've got 3 real world situations now. So imagine this, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine this wild conspiracy. Imagine this wild conspiracy. A government minister was done for tax evasion or tax fraud, whatever it was. She had to resign, and then she just came back, and the government said, "Yeah, we're just having her. Yeah, she gets to fiddle her tax books." That's what he's saying, guys. That is literally what they're saying. Angela, yeah, she can fiddle her tax books all she wants. Yeah, we're not going to get rid of her. And what can you do? What can we do to get rid of her? If the people still vote for her, that's it. We're done. We're cooked, guys. We're absolutely cooked. We are cooked. Oh no, Google is saying. Oh, hang on a minute. Sorry, there's a couple here. Okay, so Chernobyl's main reactor shield is down after a Russian strike. Let me Google this, guys. Give me a second. Which is never a good thing, is it? Chernobyl. Okay, so let's look at this in real time, guys. I've got this up. Thank you for that googly. So let's look at this. Let's look what it says about this reactor shield. Chernobyl's radiation shield lost safety function after drone strike, UN watchdog says. Right, I think that's an old picture. I mean, can you imagine being up there? Like, can you imagine that's your job? Do you think they're migrants up there, guys? Do you think, you know those guys there? Can you guys just see those guys, right? Do you guys, yeah, it's in February. Do you guys think that do you think they're women? Or do you think they're like gay or trans? Or do you think they're like liberals? Or do you think they're just men? Do you think they're just men doing their job? You know, do you think, you know, this is what I mean. Men, working men run this country. A protective shield covering Chernobyl's nuclear reactor in Ukraine can no longer provide its main contaminant function following a drone strike earlier this year. Yeah, I remember when this happened. This has been open quite a while. The International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors found that the massive structure built over the site of the 86 nuclear disaster had lost its primary safety functions, including the confinement capability. I don't think it's that bad, to be honest, but let's continue. Yeah. But he said the risk is low because the contaminated dust is contained within a thick concrete sarcophagus, which is covered by the protective shield. So, yeah, I think this is just the outer layer. I'm pretty sure this is just the outer layer. And in that, there's a big, there's a huge concrete, well, it's, they just covered it in concrete. Yes, we take plenty concrete in. No, use more concrete. How much should we use, Vladimir? Use it all. Right, let me jump back onto the chat, guys. James is saying maybe the migrants are hugging the Chernobyl reactor to stay warm. It's quite so from what I've never been to Chernobyl, but from the guys who I know who have been to Chernobyl, they say it's lovely. What by lovely, I say. probably lovely is definitely the wrong word. They say it's really cool to go there because the whole place was just abandoned. Like overnight, the whole place was just abandoned. And it's kind of like apocalyptic because you've got wild animals roaming. Actually, the animals do better in Chernobyl. You've got like this whole ecosystem now with trees breaking, like really big trees breaking through buildings and stuff. It's wild. So there also, guys, there was an attack today at Heathrow Airport in the car park, as I understand it. I think this was they're saying somebody tried to rob. There was somebody operating in Heathrow Airport car park, spraying pepper spray and trying to steal people's luggage. Now, the article just says a 31-year-old man. I've looked at the pictures, so there's some footage of the alleged man. I don't know if it is the man. There's some footage online of the alleged man being arrested, and he kind of looks like you would expect him to look. He kind of looks like you'd expect him to. It looks like you'd expect him to look, but the state where we're in at the moment, guys, in the United Kingdom, it's absolutely crazy. People are just like fear. Fear is a real thing. And what I found today, my risk appetite is potentially not what other people's risk appetite would be. So I look at these threats and I look at these risks differently. So, I think things are actually a lot worse than I perceive them. I think people feel a lot worse than I perceive them. So I perceive them as bad because they are bad. But I think other people who don't, look, guys, I just drove through a migrant camp on my own, filming with one hand. So, my risk appetite is, maybe I don't, or maybe I do perceive those threats and, they just weren't there. Where was I going with this? Yeah. But people who don't have that depth of experience, and I'm not, people have depths of experience in different things. People who don't have that depth of experience in risk management, I think they will see things a lot worse than I do. I do. I think they will see things a lot worse than I do. Like, I think a good example of this is, you've all seen the pictures, right? I think he's the Oldham mayor, and he's got a picture of him holding an, I think it's an AK. I think it's one of the airborne, it's one of the AK. I think it's one of the AK. It's an AK-47, but it's the one with the folding stock that folds underneath, not to the side. I think they were produced for the Russian, the Russian VDV or the airborne. Now, I've got absolutely no problem with that. Like, zero problems at all. He's gone to another country and he's used an AK-47. He's got a picture. I've got absolutely no problems with that at all. Like, I've got zero problems with that. Now that's my risk. That's my risk analysis. I'm like, yeah, he knows I know how to shoot, and so what? It is what it is. But other people might look at that and think, oh my God, that's terrible. It's disgusting. He's got, so what? Yeah, so James is saying most people in the United Kingdom are turning a blind eye to migrants, Ukraine war and everything unless it affects them directly. Yeah, people absolutely do that, guys. People absolutely do that 100%. And it's kind of one of these, I think there's a name for it. I think there's like a name for it in not sociology, psychology. Unless it directly affects them, they literally don't care and don't want to know. They're in for a shock. Absolutely, And for all these people, and look, guys, for all these people who are saying close down the hotels, stop feeding these people, if that happened, we would have migrants roaming the countryside with blankets. It would be wild. It would be insane. It would be insane. I've seen this. It's something I didn't expect to see. It's something I didn't expect to feel as strongly as I did about that. In fact, you know what? Let me get the map up. Let me try and find this one. Give me a second, guys. Let me get on Google Maps. Hang on. Let me make sure I've got no tags. No tags on here that'll incriminate some of the places I've been. Right, so there we are. France. Right. Yeah, I'm going to have to do it another time, guys. In fact, let me try and do this on the warm-up, actually. Let me see if this works. Oh, it may work. Ah, yeah. Yes, this is better. Okay, so. Yes. Right, I've got the map here. I'm going to use the Ukraine war map for you guys. I'm going to show you guys where the main migrant camp is that we went to. So let me share this with you guys. Just a second. So I'm using the war map here because I get the interactive tools here, which are good. So the main migrant camp that we went to is right there. Can you guys see how you've got the you've got this yellow road moving left to east to west or whatever, and then you've got this this white road that goes north, then it goes east, and it goes north again. So that wooded area, that whole wooded area there, that's a migrant camp. And then just to the north, up to this town, Mardyk, like this whole area is absolutely saturated with and all of these little woodlands, you know, these little side woods all around here, guys. They're just littered with tents and tents and tents and tents. Now, when we came in initially, we came off this main road and we turned right. And then as soon as we turned around that corner there onto that straight bit, do you know what? I will screenshot this and I'll try and geolocate it on Google Maps as well. But basically, that's the area of a huge migrant camp, and you know, there's over 1,000 people in that area, and there are just all these roads and these little paths around this countryside, guys. They're just migrants just walking. You don't know who they are, and the proximity to some of these houses, like there's a house there, there's a house there, there's a little town there. You know, we don't like these French people. They have got no idea who these migrants are. Absolutely no idea who these migrants are, and they come just walk freely into these residential areas. And honestly, it's an aspect. It is an aspect that I didn't. It's an aspect I didn't consider. I didn't consider the I didn't consider the actual impact on the local French people that live in there. So, Googly is saying fears of a new conflict have flared once again after China was accused of an extremely regrettable and dangerous act. Japan and Australia have demanded strict preventative measures after what? After what? I want to know. What happened? Oh. After Chinese military aircraft reportedly locked on to Japanese fighter. Wow, that is terrifying. I mean, surely that is a return fire. Like, surely that's a return fire. Oh, look, guys, when I've spoke about this stuff in the past, we are going to get to a situation where World War III will be started by accident. It will be started by accident because there will be no room for error. Let's just pretend, for example, and you know, that what Google is saying, Chinese military aircraft reportedly locked radar onto Japanese fighters. So I think that's when they're about to shoot and they've got radar locked, I think. So can you imagine if that was a real, if that was a real accident, a genuine accident, absolute, new pilot, new Chinese pilot doesn't know doesn't know what the buttons are for whatever reason. I've got no experience flying fast jets, so I wouldn't be able to, tell you how that happens. Now, let's put this in a Russian context, okay? Let's put this in a Russian context, all right? Right now, Russian aircraft are lost, and they're really lost. The Ukrainians have hit them with some ECM, or the Ukrainians have hit a Russian aircraft, and he's had to come down low, and he's trying to get through the, and he's trying to find his way home, or whatever. Polish aircraft now come up to intercept him. Remember, Article 4 has already been invoked, so the Polish, they know, they're like, yeah, right, okay, I know what to do now. I can push the button. If X or Y happens, I'm going to smoke this fool. I'm going to take him to the candy shop. So you see how World War III could actually start by, you can see how World War III, I feel, would start by accident. Taxi driver is saying the French people in their houses must be absolutely scared of their wits. Guys, look, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that. It's something I didn't feel like I would see or understand until I saw it. Everybody's going out there and everybody's fixated. You've got to understand the problems here. You've got to work with your allies. And I think the people of Northern France, they would be allied on your side massively. Massively. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, my solution to this problem, would be to start our own NGO. We go out there as our own NGO and we start our own NGO, providing security and monitoring of migrant camps in northern France for the French people. As a secondary, we clean the beaches. And by clean the beaches, I mean we go onto the beaches every morning and we make sure there's no, beer bottles, crisp packets, rubber dinghies and outboard motors. Because another thing I saw, I realized, another thing I realized about the boats is they need to get those boats there somewhere. There's no real, where are those boats coming from? Because, again, unless you get out there and you see this in real time, there are only so many places you can get those boats onto the beach. There are only so many places. It's not, it's limited. It's limited. So, it would be relatively easy to identify those spots and and stop those boats getting on the water. Yes, of course, you could, the migrants could just carry that boat and run down the street. It's not going to work like that. I would suspect that these boats are getting dropped off the night before, dead of night, and there's only so many places you can drive. Think about it, guys, all right? If you've got one of these big migrant boats, you're not going to want to carry it, are you? That's going to be on the back of a truck or something, or the back of a van, and then you're going to blow it up or whatever. You're not going to carry those, so you need road access. You need to be able to drive to that place, and there's only so many places you can actually get those boats from the road onto the beach. So although the beach is extensive, there are only so many access points you can get a vehicle, and that vehicle with a boat. So once you've identified those, it'll make it almost impossible for any more migrants to come over. Googly is saying a radar lock is a military action where a ship or aircraft uses it. Yeah. So the radar lock is what you do, I think. When you so you get active radar and you get passive radar. So the passive radar is the sweeping one. And it's got longer bandwidth. Is it bandwidth or frequency? I think it's frequency. Yeah, it's got a wider frequency basically, so it can pick up more stuff. And then when that radar says, yeah, there is something in that region, you use your active radar or your tracking radar then to locate it. And then that frequency is a lot smaller, so you can pick up more detail. Kev Mills is saying, in my opinion, World War III started a couple of years ago, just like World War II didn't start in 1939. That's just when it became official through a chosen event, i.e. the ultimatum. Do you know what, Kev? Yeah. Do you know what? Absolutely. You could argue there's been a few flashpoints. You could argue it started in 2014. You could argue it started in 2014. It's certainly the Russian invasion of Ukraine started 2014. Also, there's quite a few things that you could say it started, but yeah, World War II didn't start in 1939. You could say it started in 1936, maybe with the Spanish Civil War. And remember, nobody called World War II until it was over. Stephen is saying the French Prem asked the EU to punish the UK over Brexit, and they're doing a grand job. You see, they're also punishing the people of France as well, because the people of France don't want these people there as well. So, the situation is a lot, the situation is a lot more complicated than I expected it to be. But the French can protect themselves with weapons. We can't. Do you know what? I don't know what the laws are in France. I don't know what the laws are in France. Us and France have some common problems. More NGOs, get rid of the illegals. Millie Mono is saying, Sean, seeing reports the Russians have used thermobaric MLRS on the front line, yet to be confirmed. Okay, so MLRS would be, I think it's military, is it military long range system, I think. And they've used thermobaric. So they've been using thermobaric for a while. So yeah, I'm pretty sure. So Grad missiles, they're thermobaric. So you get a Grad thermobaric missile, and the Russians have been using them like forever. This might be something different. It might be something different. It might be something that a reporter has just got wind of, and they don't really understand what they're saying. But yeah, the Russians have been using thermobarics for a long time. Grad missiles are thermobaric. I'm pretty sure Grad missiles are thermobaric. Kev Mills is saying, because they are heavily allied to the called Axis of Terror, the Fiat moves to. I don't know what that means. I don't think you're talking to me there. Taxi driver is saying, you mean start an Anglo-French NGO agreement? I don't know what. I think yes, something like that. Because the people in northern France do not want those migrants there, guys. They don't want those there. Can you imagine, right? Look, guys, can you just put yourself in this situation, right? You're French, right? And I've been very critical of the French. I've been very critical of the French. You're sat there in your house, rural France. There's no one around you. That you don't have any neighbors. You're relatively isolated, and you look out the window, and there's 30 migrants with blankets on them, trying to get into your garden. What are you going to do? Literally, right there and then, what's going through your head right there and then? Right there and then, what's going through your head? It's not a good day out for these people. Google is saying British Army could run out of ammunition in 10 days in a war against Russia, experts claim. Yeah, I remember going over the border in Iraq in 2000 and when was it? 2003. I think what was it? March 2003. The British Army only took 3 days worth of ammunition with them. The whole British Army only had 3 days worth of ammunition. What they mean is 3 days at, sorry, but what they're meaning here is 10 days at maximum, maximum usage. James is saying, I could go out as their NGO and teach them how to be British, like how to make tea, how to stand in a queue for ages and moan about the weather. I think it would be, look, guys, I really do, there's a lot of things happening right now. There's these guys going out there, cutting the boats, they're going out there and they're exposing the situation. It's not sustainable. And, with all the best will in the world, it's not sustainable. If you're going out there on your own and you're trying to do that stuff, they're gonna arrest you. The French police will arrest you because you're pissing them off. They will. They'll arrest you, and those guys, they'll get arrested by the French police, and the process will be the crime. The process will be the punishment. If you set up an NGO and you go out there as an NGO, and let's just say, who just said that? So James, let's just say, James, you're working for that NGO, right? Yeah. And the police come and arrest you. The NGO gives you top cover then. It's not you. You're working on behalf of that NGO, and then that NGO gets called into question. And then you go through the court system, then you challenge what they're saying, and it just becomes a faff, and they leave them alone. The French police would leave the NGOs alone. But, it's silly is saying it sounds like it's well-funded and organised. If it's so easy to be stopped, if one day trip of Sean see things so clearly, obviously people in power have no intention of stopping it. They don't silly. And like we've said on this channel quite a few times, there's clearly a reason why these people are coming here. Suzanne is saying, Susie Verham is saying, come on, Sean, better to get the ones who dropped the rubbish in the first place. We shouldn't be babysitting these men. Listen, guys, I'm giving you guys a realistic solution on how to stop the boats. I've seen this. I've been out there. I've seen it with my own eyes. The only solution to stop my solution, of course, you can say that the Royal Navy should be, you can say that the Royal Navy should be on the borders and, stop it. It's not happening. It's not going to happen. My solution is a realistic solution. It will stop the boats. It will stop the boats. Yes, of course, yes, of course, we should be going after the people who drop who are putting those rubber dinghies down there. Yes, of course, we should be going after the people who are supplying those outboard motors. Yes, of course, we should be following that money. I can't do that. That's something that has to be done at government level, and it's not being done. It's not being done. What we can do is we can use the NGO framework. We can set up an NGO in France and we can stop the boats. Yes, the bad stuff will still be going on. Those bad guys won't be brought to justice, but we will have stopped the boats. That's what I'm getting at. And that's a realistic option. It's a realistic option and it will work. D. Marie is saying, good evening. No doubts I've missed a load. Well done, Calishon. Right, guys, listen, I'm just going to run through real quick. The crux of this live stream. I was giving you guys a rundown on my trip to Calais. The situation is, for those of you guys who don't know, I've just come back from Calais. I was in the migrant camps. The situation is a lot worse than I thought. It really is. The numbers are a lot. The numbers and the depravity is something I didn't consider. And and what life must be like for the people who live in that region of France. Terrifying. Really didn't, I really didn't see that. Now I've got a solution. I've got a solution, and my solution would be to start an NGO, and that NGO would be to provide security and monitoring for the local French people of these migrant camps. And it would also be to make the beaches cleaner. So we would go out there in the mornings and in the evenings and, sweep these beaches, make sure they're clean from, crisp packets and beer bottles and rubber dinghies and outboard motors and jerry cans full of diesel. So that's how I believe we can stop. So that's how I believe we can stop the boats. It's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be cheap, guys. It's not going to be expensive. You know what? It is going to be cheap. It is going to be cheap, all right? When we're considering how much we're spending on hotels, I think this project would cost £1 million a year. Now, £1 million a year, that would be for food and accommodation for the guys. So what I would do is I would set up an NGO. It would be volunteer-based. People come to France as soon as they get to Dover, I think, or wherever. I don't know. We would pay for their travel. We'd pay for their travel. We'd pay for their food, food, accommodation, drones for surveillance, media productions, legal support, training and equipment. We would have to pay for all that stuff. That's what you can't, it's not feasible that guys go out there on their own and they can't continue that. That's not gonna continue. They're either going to get arrested, they're going to run out of money. And, as that, it's not going to end well, I don't think it's going to end well. The migrant camps themselves are prison in the United Kingdom would be an upgrade to these migrant camps. It would. So when you think about it, when you think about migrants coming over to the United Kingdom and they're wherever they are, they think worst case scenario, if I get to the United Kingdom, is better than the scenario I've got now. So there really is no incentive not to come. Courtney is saying, I play online game, ended up with a Ukrainian, a Russian and a French person and a Muslim talking about wanting to come to the UK. The arguments were carnage, but they all had good points. Listen, guys, look, if I was in the, and I think you would guys as well. I think you guys would as well. If you were in a bad situation, you would want to make your situation better. I don't think that statement's false, guys. I think that's a fair and true statement. Templar Matt is saying you can splatter a government building in shite in France and not get arrested, but if you pop a dinghy, you're fucked. James is saying, I read earlier they might drop the new Ajax. It's injured 300 soldiers. It replaced the Scimitar at 8 tons for Ajax tank of 40 tons and 8 years past production date. Oh, no. They've spent 5.4 billion. They've spent 5.4 billion on the Ajax. Some of my earliest videos, guys, were saying what a ridiculous, how ridiculous is that system, guys? How ridiculous is it? Can you imagine the government? Right, guys. Do you know how much? I did the maths. Do you know how much that Ajax project would be? I definitely did videos on this. So for the price of that Ajax vehicle, they could give everybody in the army a minimum of 40 grand. Just here I go. There's 40 grand. So let me ask you this. If you're in the army, would you rather have 40 grand as a bonus or nothing? Because that's what they've got at the moment, nothing. And the MOD have just wasted 5.4 billion. Phenomenal. Yeah, 5.4 billion. It was 5.4 billion, guys. I'm telling you, hang on. Right, so I've got it there. Right, I'm going literally here, guys, from the right. This is literally from the government's website. All right, so this is literally from the government's website. Let me share this with you. Ajax is the Army's new fighting vehicle program, costing 5.5 billion. 5.5. Sorry, I said 5.4, didn't I? It's actually 5.5 billion. That's what it cost. That's what the taxpayers spent their money on. Nothing. Why haven't you got any British Army? Can you imagine Trump phoning up? Hey, Keir, I hear you've only got 10 days of ammunition. Where's all your money gone? Oh, we spent it on nothing. So, you know what I tell you guys? You know what I tell you guys about manufacturing, right? Yeah? Hear me out. Britain are now claiming to have spent 5.5 billion on defense, right? Yeah? And they'll go up there and they'll go to their meetings and say, we've spent 5.5 billion on defense. You know, and then somebody will say, oh, what did you get? Nothing. You know, so it doesn't matter how much you spend on defense if you're getting nothing. You see where I'm going, guys? You see where I'm going? How people like, you know, when people are giving this like, you know, when you get these like half-baked intellectuals and they're trying to say NATO can outspend Russia $50 to 1. And you're like, yeah, but you do realize like you've just spent 5.5 billion on nothing. Yes, but we're outspending them. They might be outproducing us on rockets, tanks, and ammunition, but we're spending more money on nothing. Like, it's fucking crazy, guys. It's absolutely crazy. All right, let me jump up, guys. Yeah, do you know what? That is exactly what I said. For that money, we could have had a space program. Yeah. So for that, and no, it was pounds. That was pounds, guys. That was 5.5 billion pounds on nothing. It was 5.5 billion pounds on nothing. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close this down. I'm back now. I'll be back on tomorrow morning. Crux of this video is it's far worse than I thought. The migrant camps out in Cali. There isn't a quick fix. There isn't a quick solution. My only what I would say the best way to do this would be to start an NGO up, start another NGO. And with that NGO, you work with the local French and you close the boats down by stopping those boats getting on the beach. But you know, these things I think it will cost at least £1 million a year. Right, guys, I am going to close this down now. You guys have been fantastic. Make sure to like and comment, subscribe as well, guys, if you've not done so already. Hit that bell notification. Hit the bell notification. We love those bell notifications. And I will be back on tomorrow morning, guys. I'll be back on tomorrow morning at 10. And good night to everybody and God bless. I'm absolutely knackered. How do I close this? Do I click that? Yeah.